Hi, I'm Corey.
Hi, I'm Tess.
Welcome to A Lovely Place.
We're so glad you've joined us as we invite Jesus into the midst of our lives, learning, and laughter.
We hope this podcast can encourage your heart and make you smile today.
Hello.
Hello, my friend.
How are you, my friend?
I am good. I'm glad that I get to be doing this because it's the highlight of my week. I don't know what you would call it, but I really enjoy our podcast.
Yes, I look forward to this time. It's like an appointment that's like, yes, an appointment.
Right? Yes, exactly.
Not that there's not to-dos around it because I have to be prepared, but it's a good preparing and it's a fun, like, life-giving. Remember when we did that when we were looking at what our pace was going to be in different things, and we were like, let's do this so we can sustain and be in this and keep going. And last night I think I mentioned it the last episode, but it's just part of life. If I don't get out too much, the same story will come out. Anyways, we were with a group of moms, and one of the other moms was asking me, well, what do you do when you're not reading? She'll talk about homeschooling and cooking dinner and all these other things I normally do. And then I'm like, well, what do I do? And then I was actually sitting next to Elisa, and she's like, well, Corey has a podcast. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I kind of blushed a little bit. Like, I was like, oh, I feel like I'm in my room here and I'm just with you. And I forget that other people here. I don't forget that people are listening. But I just thought, I don't know. It was really sweet that she said that. And she's listened to some previous episodes. And then she was like, well, I'm behind. I'm like, oh, no, that's fine. It was just a sweet moment.
Yeah.
So, thanks for being in this together with me.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes I can forget that, like, oh, people do actually notice what's going, like that we're doing it, because sometimes in my mind, I think nobody's listening.
Right. Right. But we get to listen to each other. So yeah, I like that.
Yes. I learn a lot from our podcast.
Yeah. And read books. I like reading books.
Me too. It's good.
And we're reading Famous at Home.
Yep, by Josh and Christy Straub.
Thank you for helping me say their name.
I hope I'm saying it right.
Yeah, I hope so too.
They also have a podcast, so
yes,
we could link that in the show notes so you can check it out. They also, I just saw that they are releasing like a family newsletter kind of a thing. So now if you sign up for their email list, they'll send you something each week to help you be famous at home. So I thought that was helpful. This chapter that we're reading right now is chapter 5, which is your significance. And the question is, how is your identity guiding your family? This one I thought was really good. Like, I really related to some of the perspectives that Josh was talking about. Because I feel like he was the main voice in this one. At least that's what stood out to me. So anyway, he starts out with like a story about how he was feeling left out because it was conference season and he didn't get invited to go speak at the conferences or something.
Yeah.
But he was hanging out with his kids and just kind of had a moment where he was like, he had been scrolling on his phone or something and like seeing pictures of this conference that he wanted to be at or something and was like, and he just put his phone away and went to go play with his kids. I was challenged by that because I think sometimes, I don't know, I think sometimes I can get so busy with thinking about what I'm doing outside of my home or what am I getting done inside my home, like very task driven. That sometimes I forget like about those connection moments of just playing, And I know like I've heard some people be like, well, I don't like playing with my kids, like I'm not the person that does that. But part of me thinks that like even though we may not always enjoy like the things that our kids want us to play with them, like that act of playing with a person really can connect you in such a way that you might not get just from like, oh, well, we ate dinner together and then we, you know, went somewhere together, but you actually like can interact in a different way.
Yeah. It made me think of that Don't Mom Alone episode about playing with your kids and like setting a timer. I don't know if she was like 10 or 5 minutes or whatever, and you just let the kid direct the play.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like you have to turn your brain off and just play. And I remember being more intentional with that when Riker was even littler and just like going along with whatever he was play acting with our Duplo Legos. And I found myself missing Duplos because I felt like I could play that easier. Where little Legos, it drives me crazy and they're everywhere. But I just was like, okay, but I like to help. I like to play. And so sometimes I just try to play other things that sound more fun to me, but can still translate that connection, like whether it's a different board game or the other day, well, I don't know if it was actually playing with him, but it was a connection point. I was reading my book and I said, well, you can build a fort around me. So I think, I don't know if that was in a different, whatever. Anyways, I was laying there on the floor reading my book and he was building a fort around me quite content and all the blankets, I think, and pillows from upstairs were on top of me. So it was quite a little moment of, but, and then we were talking and having jumping, but I remember that episode of it wasn't even that much time that had more of a payoff with the kids, like that they got to direct. How often are we directing them all day? Like, schedule monitor. We got to do this, like the whole day they're being told what to do. Like, so I could understand and appreciate they get to tell you what to do with this playing moment. Like,
yeah, that's good. I like that a lot. It makes me think, how can I incorporate more ways into our day that the kids get to be the director of what we're doing? Because I feel like I think we talked about before, like feeling like a cruise director.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is not my ultimate goal. You know, but if you want to be on time for things or whatever, you know, you have to do that to a point. But I like that idea of letting the kids lead some things, even if it's not play, even if it's like, hey, you're in charge of dinner getting made tonight and you get to tell me what I'm going to do or something like that, you know?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Thinking, because I have Spencer is 10. So different ways that would age up with your kid, you know?
Yeah.
So
I think I was thinking of that too. Like, I don't want to hold Riker back just because I think he can't do something. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Could he actually do this? Or what's he going to be doing in 5 years that can help him get, like, just like bridging this gap from little baby to, he can do a lot more than I'm letting him or teaching him or coaching, whatever. It's like, but maybe if he was telling me where to put the dishes or I don't, like that could be a role reversal and still meet the needs of the family. Because he was like the other day, why do I have to put dishes away again? I said, because we eat every day.
Right.
That's just a blessing we have in our life. So I was trying to remind him of that blessing that he has. And
we're fortunate that we get to put the dishes away every day. We have a place to put dishes. We have dishes. Yay.
Yes.
Yeah. This whole chapter reminds me of what we've been doing, something that's been going on with Jackson lately. But I want to read this quote first before I start talking about it. So Josh says, for the decade that preceded having a family, my primary source of affirmation came from what I did, how I helped others, and the connection I enjoyed making. And then he says, for a decade prior to getting married, I had attached my identity and significance to what I did and to what others thought of my hard work. But as I sat on my boy's bed, my identity began to shift. Though I would have agreed intellectually with the statement, my biggest fans live under my roof, it wasn't until I spent time with my kids on the island of Sodor, which is part of the story he was telling, that I began to feel alignment between my soul and my mind. And I feel like I kind of had like a testing moment of this week because so Jackson has decided that he's discovered that he really likes art and he likes drawing, and that's something that he really enjoys doing and that he's pretty good at. I think he's better than I am because I'm really not good at like drawing and stuff like that. So anyway, so he's been pursuing that a little bit more, and he decided the other day that, you know, we just moved like a month ago or a month and a half now, and he decided that he wanted to open an art shop on the sidewalk in front of our house. And that it's going to be a family operation, so we're all going to have a job to do for the art shop. And he's doing drawings. He wants Daniel to draw too because Daniel's really good at drawing. And then first he decided I was going to make some clay sculptures. And I was like, Bud, I don't think anyone's going to buy a clay sculpture that I make. So I'm trying to assist with his administrative duties. But
excellent.
And then Spencer is actually pretty good at like clay sculpturing. He's made some cute ones. So I was like, why doesn't Spencer do that? So then he was like, Mom, you can do poetry. You can write poetry. I'm like, okay, sure. But then he's been following me during the day and being like, and now you're going to write some poetry. And I'm like, okay, just give me some space.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've always been just, I don't know if it's my upbringing or my personality. I've always been very concerned about what people think of me, and especially random people that I don't know, which I'm not quite sure where that comes from.
Yeah.
But, you know, so like moving into a new neighborhood, I'm like, I know none of these people. We've met a couple of our neighbors, but we really don't know them, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know what they think of us, like, at all. They probably think some days I'm the lady who comes out and yells or is like rushing people into the car. I don't know. But so he decided that he wants to open his art shop. So he came home from school yesterday. He had gotten some of his drawings already and was ready to set it up. So we went out
like
there.
A little lemonade stand, but it's
kind
art
of
instead.
Like
okay.
a little folding table.
Yeah.
You know. And I mean, he wants it to be elaborate. Like he wants to actually build something for it. And I was like, let's get started with it. And like before we start doing all this, you know, spending money on things and all these other things. And so he went outside and was at his little table, and we set up a sign, and he had his art out, and he took his whistle, and I was like, what's the whistle for? And he was like, to get people's attention so they'll come to my shop. I'm like, okay. But, you know, he decided he wanted to do this to make new friends, you know? And I'm like, okay, like, I'm trying to put my money where my mouth is and, like, you know, back him up in some of the things that he wants to do, even if maybe it might make me look stupid. You know, I don't know how that would. But, you know, that's what you worry about. Like, what are the neighbors going to think when they see him sitting in front of our house on the sidewalk with his whistle and his folding table? And like, I don't even know. But I was like, okay, just let it go. Like, and so he's been directing some of my tasks that I'm helping, you know, with him. And it just makes me think, okay, like where do I find my significance? It's not in being neighbor of the year, right? Like, or looking the coolest to my neighbors. Like, that's not what I'm all about.
Yeah, and who's to say what even they think is a cool neighbor?
Right.
Like,
I have no
maybe
idea.
they would be like, wow, that mom's awesome. She's supporting her kid. You know, like, that. I would think that was cool. Like,
I kept thinking
was
they must think I'm punishing him and making him sit out in the cold.
Oh,
But I'm not.
No.
But anyway.
Yeah, I guess it is January right now, huh?
Yes, but he's very determined. So anyway, it just, I don't know. That just made me laugh. But it makes me think of this, like, you know, how can I be not find my significance in my kids, but how can I be significant to them? You know,
yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, and did anybody come to his table the other day or?
Not yet. And
Not
he was
yet.
very disappointed. I took
Okay.
a picture of him and his face was just kind of like,
Blah.
but
Yeah.
I told him, I said, you know, it's cold. There might not be a lot of people walking around.
Right.
And
Right.
you might have to, like, if you want a new friend, you also might just have to go up to someone's house and knock on their door and say, hey, can I play with your kids?
Yeah.
You know, but this morning we made some flyers like that say Dresser Art Shop or Art and Crafts Shop. And it has his business hours and our address.
I love it.
And he's been putting, this morning before school, he put a few of those on some of the neighbors' doors. So we'll see what happens today at 4:00.
Okay. In this hour. I like this little entrepreneurial spirit he has going on here.
Yeah.
Like that's you can't just make that up. That's
Right?
yeah. Way to support him in that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I like that because that's definitely like Josh was doing. Put his phone down, and then I think he even took it in a different room. I think in the story, and I just like that of like how often is our phone just too close for,
Right.
and in the way of having your poetry break before 4:00 shop opens. You get your poem out there, like,
oh goodness.
and how sweet is that to Jackson that, oh, my mom even wrote a poem and she put it in my shop. Like, how cool is that? But
Yes.
yeah. Well, and then I was thinking like they have that illustration of famous at home, you know, like walking the red carpet and people are looking at famous people. But then it's like, I know they're like switching it to be our family's the one looking at us and it's things, but there is an element of this is how our family is moving through, and other people will notice it for better or for worse, what's on our family carpet that we're presenting, you know, like,
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting perspective. Like, do other, not, and it's not geared, I'm not motivated by what other people think, but just being
Right.
aware of it. Like, how am I presenting myself at family bingo night at Riker School? And am I smiling or saying hi or, you know, like,
Right.
or,
Yeah, 'cause,
or
like
am I just like shut down and I'm not, or I didn't even show up to that? Like, so it just is an interesting thing, like, just to kind of check in, just to be
Yeah.
like, what's going on of this? What camera angle? You know,
Right.
just
Well, and to
play that
remember that,
famous
like,
thing.
that everything we do is everything we walk out, like every action is our values on display, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so how are we living out our values? Are we living out our values, you know? Or are they just fantasy values?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that fantasy self is kind of ridiculous because then it's like, okay, wait a minute. What am I doing here? What's going
Yeah.
on? And yeah.
So I liked what he said in this chapter. He said, I wanted to learn how to allow myself to be loved again by my Heavenly Father, not because of what I could do for him, but simply because he loves me for who I am, his child. In my experience, showing up for my biggest fans happens in its purest form when I feel loved by God. I thought that was good. You know, we've talked about like self-compassion, and it's hard to have compassion for others when you don't have compassion for yourself, you know? And I think this is kind of similar, you know, that unless we are living in a place where we feel confident that we have the love of God, like, it can be hard to wholeheartedly love the people in our lives, you know? Which I think God's reminding me that it's important to spend time with him in the morning before I wake up so that I can live out of the abundance of his love instead of feeling like I'm needing something, you know, like,
Yeah.
because I don't think anyone ever wants to feel needy. And so it's like once we can fill ourselves up, then it's easier to operate in a place of giving, you know?
Right. Well, and
So,
then that's like Stefan made the job change to leave the one school that was very intense and very all consuming of every part of him. And so he was like, I can't do this anymore for my family. And it's like, it was like yes, he has to walk into whatever building he's walking into for work, but he also has to walk out of that building and come home. And the pieces of him that were left to come home were not complete.
yeah.
So then it was like getting to experience that husband that does feel loved and centered and not pushed to his limits every day is so much nicer. And it's like, and that's worth the changes in finances and changes in our direction and the questions we don't quite know where we're exactly going to land and the unknown of it. But we're as a family facing that. It's not like just constantly trying to pick up and support, or that doesn't sound right. Obviously, we'll support each other, but it just is interesting when you're bringing your A game to your family first and then finding a job and a position that can work with those values, I guess, is what, and like what God has called you to do, because you have to know when that balance is too. Like if everything gets out of balance and is hard to function, I think that's different than just a challenge that you're facing. There's that balance that it's like it crosses the line. And so recognizing that and having wisdom in that and praying, and that kind of goes back to our adversary chapter from last time we were meeting, like what's the enemy trying to take away, or what's going on here that's conflicting with our values, that's like because I think that was sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what you're saying makes me think of this other quote. He says, as you discover more about who you are and who your family is, it might require making some changes in your lifestyle, job, schooling for your kids, or even where you live. But don't be afraid of reprioritizing your roles or even what God might call you to do as a family. Though change can feel scary in the moment, imagine what God can do through your family on the other side of your faith. So I think that's exactly what you were just talking about. You know, like you guys identified that the way this is working isn't aligning with our values as a family. Like, and we have to make a change, even though it's scary, you know?
Right. And it's like, all right, we need to do that. And I love that. I don't know where it came from, but there's a yes on the other side of a no, just the other way around. Like what you're saying no to or yes to is, there's the other side. Like, you need to look at both sides of that picture. Like, it's important to figure out, like, okay, wait a minute. Let's take a time out here. Like, so I'm thankful for that. And just having a moment to take a breath, like, woof. And knowing our identity is not in our job. Like, it's not, or I don't know, like, and I guess I've said it kind of before too, like when I was having trouble walking and going to the bathroom and all that stuff with that lower back pain, sciatic situation, not that it's gone, but it's not as debilitating. But it was like, well, what happens when all that's stripped away? What's left? Where's my value coming from? Where's the worth? Like, so it was an interesting lesson learning, like, okay, I'm secure and I'm Jesus' daughter. I'm a daughter of the King, you know, like, it's just like, and that can't be taken away. It's always there. But whether I do a haircut or I make dinner or whatever, those are good. Yay, good job. But it's like, well, you're still, I don't know. I just have to boil it down, I guess, to the simple.
Yes.
I can't get it complicated.
Right.
dial it back. What's on page 1?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. So it's like,
before you read our verse for the day, I wanted to read this one last quote, which says, which gives me hope, I think, because sometimes I judge things on external success. And, you know, as a parent, you don't see a lot of external success most of the time.
Right.
At least I don't think I do.
It feels like it.
Yeah. So it says, the seeds you sow as a parent may not bear fruit in your season, but that doesn't mean you haven't left a legacy. A true legacy is when you know who your family is and you choose to remain faithful regardless of the outcome. And I think it was some amount of years ago when Spencer was a lot younger that God reminded me as I was reading the Bible with the story of David, how, King David was a warrior and he was a good king, but he had been in a lot of wars and he wanted to build God's temple. And God was like, no, you're not going to do it, but Solomon, his son, was going to do it. And David went about doing everything he could to set Solomon up for that success, and so I think this just reminds me that, like, sometimes we're sowing seeds and we don't ever see the fruit, and, but we can be faithful with the part in the process that we play, even if we don't see where it leads or the good that comes from it,
Yes.
So, right there.
That's very good. The John 15 is one of my favorite chapters of the whole, the whole book, the whole Bible. I'm not sure. I never know anyways. So that was what was on my heart. And when I popped into this, reading the title, our significance, and then what we're doing for our family. And I was just remembering Jesus saying in verse 13, he was 12. I'll just back up. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for his friends. And I just was thinking of this, like, as in our family, like, how are we laying our life down for our family and honoring and loving the other person above whatever we might first need, like that, just that, because Jesus gave everything for us. So it's like, we can never even compete with that. Like, and then it keeps going. He doesn't call us we're his friends. He doesn't want us to be ignorant. In verse 16, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give you. These things I command you, that you love one another. So I just love that it's like our significance in him is that he chose us, and then we get to love our family, and that's part of our fruit that we're bearing in this lifetime, and hopefully that reaches out to other people also. But it starts in the tree has to have its roots. Here's some gardening things again. And this has to be growing before it can produce fruit, before it can create shade or food for other people. Like, it's just like, it's this natural. We're trees, friends. Without being weird. Oh, I think
it's
I got
good though.
weird.
The Bible talks about trees a lot.
Yeah.
So
thanks, friend.
Yeah. It's a good analogy.
Yes.
And Jesus talks about gardening a lot. So I think it's good that we talk about gardening.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Vine
uses
dresser,
a lot of gardening metaphors.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he liked to touch the dirt where he created everything.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of trippy too, huh? Anyways. Wow.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right.
There we go. We're chosen.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be complicated. And then get to love on each other. Like, that's just so much fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
And our significance does not come from this whatever outward signs of success that we, are so often encouraged to strive for. That's not where our significance comes from. It comes first from being loved by God, and then, by showing up for the people who matter to us.
Yeah.
the important people.
I'll be praying for Jackson as he has this art stand, that he would know he's created and that he's like the creator in creating. That would be his significance, not his sales of his stand.
Yes. Or how many people he meets, you know?
Yeah.
And I told him this morning on the way to school, I said, I'm proud of you for trying new things and being brave and, you know, no matter what happens. So,
yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I look forward to knowing more updates of how our trees grow.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, friend,
so much.
And thank you, listeners. We will chat with you next time.
Yes. Bye.
All right. Bye.